Welcome back to the Flex Diet Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike T. Nelson. On this podcast, we talk about all things to increase performance, muscle mass, improve body composition, do it all within a flexible framework without destroying your health. Today on the program, all the way from the land down under, is my buddy Ben Mayfield-Smith. I got to meet him and his wonderful now fiance when they were here at the Super Coach Summit, which was amazing at the end of August. Saw them briefly at the gym. We just did get to train together. They were headed out as Allie and I were headed into the gym to train that day, which was great. And I wanted to get him on the podcast to share all of his amazing knowledge with all of you guys here. So in this one, we talk primarily more about the physiology, but also a lot of the psychology, and we switch back and forth between talking to coaches and then just talking about things that can be helpful to you for physique and performance. Also, everything from time management to building a sleep routine, the importance of good coaching, how do you navigate client setbacks, long-term goal setting, lifestyle factors, the value of mentorship and experience, and just a wide range of awesome information Ben had here. So I'm super stoked to share all of this with you. And then for sponsors of this podcast, we have Tecton. So if you're looking for an exogenous ketone drink in a ready-to-drink can, this is definitely my go-to. And again, I am a advisor to them and also an ambassador. And I've been using it more down here as if recording. We are down here in South Padre, Texas, getting some kiteboarding in. And I've noticed that it seems to really help with the, I guess you could say, more of the cognitive fatigue from kiteboarding. On the physical side, generally pretty good, although my abs have been so sore the past 2 days from doing more jumps, so probably need to do more direct ab work in the future. But coming back in, I'll have 1 or 2 cans of Tecton, and I feel like I can actually think again after a while when I go back out. So if you've ever tried to learn more complex skills, there definitely is a fatiguing component to that, not only physically, but also mentally. And I found it works good for that. Also, if I've got to do some writing later at night, or if I'm just feeling like I'm a little bit off from lack of sleep, travel, etc. It definitely seems to help. So check them out below. We've got a link there. You can use the code Dr. Mike to save some money. We were also briefly in Austin, Texas. Went out to dinner with a friend. Shout out to Dave. And he was super stoked and happy with Tecton, so that was awesome. And then we also have the Flex 4. So the Flex 4 question I asked Ben was, what would be like your top 4 things if you had a new coach in front of you that you've learned over the years through your schooling and all your experience? You're like, man, I wish when I was new someone sat me down and told me these 4 things. What would they be? So you can get exclusive access to that by going to miketnelson.com/flex4. That's FLEX, the number 4. We'll put a link there down below. You'll also get access to all the previous Flex 4 questions. Also, I will put you onto the daily newsletter list. If you are already on the newsletter list, then you get exclusive access to the Flex 4 already. But if you're not on there, you can hop on for free. Go to the link down below. It's miketnelson.com/flex4, FLEX, the number 4. So without further ado, enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Ben Mayfield-Smith.
Yo,
Yo, what's up, homie?
what's up, big dog? Feel like I haven't seen you forever, and it's only been like 3 weeks.
I know. Has it been 3 weeks already?
It's actually pretty, I think it's pretty close to it.
Oh, that's wild. Oh, there's
Because
somebody
when,
else on here. What is this?
oh,
Oh,
get
is
rid of
it just
that.
recording on your end?
Yeah, for some reason it's not letting me drop it out of the actual chat, but it's just my note-taking AI that I
Oh,
use
okay.
for.
Yeah, it should be fine. You made it home.
Yeah, man. Oh man, the the last Ram, yeah,
Oh yeah, I know Ram.
yeah. So we stayed with a Ram in San Diego after everyone told us not to go back to LA. We modified our trip. And he put us up in San Diego, so we went and seen him. Spent about 3 days there before we flew home. It was yeah, it was by the end of it, we were just ready to go. It's great because it's always great meeting. We got to connect with yourself. We got to connect or reconnect with people. We got to see things, do things, go on the Ohio, but it was like 33,000 kilometers of travel by the time we got back to Brisbane.
Whoa,
So it ends
that's
up wrapping up.
brutal.
Yeah. And it was like, I think 10 flights, 10 flights, a train trip, two bus trips, 33,000 kilometers. And one was it LA, San Fran, Vegas, Philly, Washington, Virginia, Ohio, San Diego, 9 cities,
Wow. Over, was it 2.5 weeks?
3 weeks plus travel days. So it ended up
Okay.
like we traveled like a total of 23 days.
Oof.
So it added up pretty bloody quickly. Like the flight home was the worst. We had this woman, like absolute Karen. They brought for some reason people think it's wise to travel with 2-year-old kids on long international flights. I don't know
Oh,
why. But it was just like the child had never been disciplined in his life. And
oh
so
no.
they thought for some reason before the flight even happened, they abused the air hostess because they didn't have a bassinet thing to carry the baby, and they'd somehow been told that the flight attendants would have a bassinet for the child. And no one
Oh.
had seen that on a flight ever in my life. And for some reason, this woman had decided that was a thing, and then called this air hostess, "You're a fucking bitch. Screw you. Like, how dare you speak to us like this?"
Oh.
And then the kid just starts yelping, and across, I think it was like we tried to go to sleep at, I don't know, whatever time it would have been. We had a 10:30 flight. So we left American nighttime. We landed Australian morning time. So it was a good link
Mm-hmm.
up. But this child howled. It wasn't just a cry. It was like a scream for help. Get me away from this woman.
Was
And
it
it was
like the
like,
more like the screech?
yeah,
Oh.
no. And we're just like, I'm just like, my agitation for people was just at such a thin level by the time we finished this trip. Where I'm just like, if this was a human man, I'd have punched it by now. It's a child. I can't. But it was only a few years older. So that was a nice little finish to the trip. So the rest of it, though, was amazing.
Were you in the back and coach crammed in like a human cashew then on top of it?
Yeah, we haven't got to the
Yeah,
level we pays for our first class tickets. Ideally, one day that happens. Not yet, though.
I know. I have that on my list. When we went to Australia, I looked at the prices of them and I'm just like,
Yeah,
holy crap. Like I would,
yeah,
my income would have to be so high, not just to
yeah,
have the money to do it, but to have the mind space of being like,
yeah,
I'm okay spending this money here.
yeah. Like I was speaking of Brooklyn, I'm like, if it gets to a point where like our goal is to have a large level of like international demand and like just presenting and sharing and teaching, I was like, if it became an option of will either pay you cash to speak or pay for like your flights, I'm like, I'm taking the flights. Book first
Yeah,
class, don't
yeah,
pay me. I'll speak for free. Just fly me out there. That I would take that hands down without question. Because like when I like they walk you out past first class so you can
oh
see what
yeah.
you have. And I'm like, I've got the spine of a 75-year-old. I'm going to walk past this and watch these people like lounging around and feet up and watching their movies with like first class headphones. This is chump. I just feel like an absolute loser. So, like, for me, if I ever get to that point where someone will pay you or fly you out, I'm taking tickets.
Yeah, especially on those long flights, that's 12 to 13 hours plus. It's to me like if you could go to sleep in a comfortable position and sleep for 8 to 9 hours, that is like the ultimate not only travel hack to me, that's time travel. That's like as
I,
close in my lifetime as I'll ever get to actual time travel.
yeah, especially when like in America. So when we land, we actually go back in time. So
Yeah.
like we left Wednesday, we landed Wednesday. So like we've gained basically like a whole day after traveling that far. So I'm like, if we can do this like in first class, where you basically close your eyes and blink, you're basically there. Like that's, I would wake up refreshed, happy, relaxed, chilled. But nah, we got to sit and crammed up. Like on the first, the way home was good because there wasn't as many people. So Brooklyn was like we had a row to ourselves. So Brooklyn
Oh,
South,
nice.
that was good because I'm like I could stretch out, put my feet up. On the way in, I'm on the window seat, like I'm 107 kilos coming to America, and Brooklyn's like trying to wedge onto me, and I'm like trying to tuck myself in so I don't like cram her space, and I'm like, this sucks. It just sucks.
Yeah, that was like my experience flying to Amsterdam when I was doing the teaching there with Luke. The way over, I paid for an exit row, which ironically wasn't that much more. It was like $80 more. I'm like, oh hell yeah. And I got
Yeah.
lucky that no one was in the middle seat and said plenty of
Oh,
room, like long flight. The guy next to me is super quiet, super chill, and it's long, but it was very doable. Got off, went to the gym, it was cool. The way home, flight got delayed. Get on the flight. The person checking me in basically said, "You're happy you got a seat. Suck it up. Deal with it." So I'm in the back, crammed into this even tiny seat next to Halitosis Harry, who every time he turned his head, you could just like your hair almost melted, and oh, it was so bad.
yeah. It was funny. We had a conversation with Cav. He's, oh man, I got to fly to the Atlantic and fly to Paris. And I'm like, oh, how long is that flight? It's 6 hours. It's exhausting. I was like, fuck you.
Oh
Fucking
yeah,
tell me. Shut up, Cav. He's like, oh, you guys don't understand. It's so busy. And we go back and forth from France. I'm like, oh, how long is that? 6 hours. I'm like, man, fuck. We do that just to go back to the West Coast. Shut up.
yeah, and I think he's flying in first class too.
Yeah, it's not like he's going over there on chump tickets.
Yeah,
He ain't sitting with the peasants. He's done his time.
yeah.
But yeah, no, the
Uh,
rest of the trip, like the Table Talk podcast was fantastic. Like we spoke for 3 hours.
oh, I'm so excited to listen to that one.
Yeah, it was good. Like it was one of the first times where someone had actually spoke to me beyond just like sets and reps. Like a lot of the time, like I'll speak about bodybuilding and stuff like that. But we set the thing that obviously his thing is send what you want to talk about beforehand because we obviously haven't met, so he doesn't know what I do.
Right.
And so we added our like touch to what we really want to focus on. And it was good to have someone who had never met me. And it's like how we started chatting straight away. It was just like hormone profiles, blood profiles,
Yeah.
bodybuilding plans. Like it was like actual nerd shit straight away, as
Yeah.
opposed to what's the best maximal length position for tension and hypertrophy. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
And it was like we actually got speaking about like psychology of athletes, mindsets, like the way we approach prepping people and stuff. And it was like 3 hours. And I was like, holy shit. That was luckily I had some modafinil, some caffeine, and some monsters. He was ripping the Zims. Like he must have had 5 or 6 of them in the whole. I was like, all right. So that was good.
Yeah. Well, that was the topic I was thinking about today too, was just we're already recording. So I think most trainers, if you would agree, the sets and reps thing is most people are either they're going to do whatever they're going to do, or they have a system that they already like. So the topic I was thinking about is, so what's beyond sets and reps, right?
Mhm.
Because especially with the rise of AI and all the automation and everything else, gone are the days of a trainer that's just going to count reps. I'd say gone are
Yeah.
the days of a trainer who's even doing solid nutrition and programming. That's
Mhm.
just a no-brainer. Like you have to do that or you're not even considered. And I think the
Mhm.
future is, especially for even bodybuilding, competitive, gen pop, what else do you do? What lifestyle components do you do? Do you talk about sleep? Do you talk about psychology? Do you all these things that AI can't replace right now and may never be able to replace? And to me,
Yeah.
all those things are the things that actually make good coaching, whether people
Yeah.
know that or not, in terms of customers looking at what you're doing.
Yeah. I think that's huge. Like, do you want to get in that question now? Or do you reckon that's where we go?
Yeah, just start talking.
Just, we got time. No, I totally agree. So one of the things that I've really noticed, and I had this conversation several times in America, was the shift away from in the composition space, the bodybuilding space, is people don't understand the coaching skill. A
Hmm.
lot of people, when you come from like a sporting background, like I can almost tell the difference pretty quickly between coaches and people that have never had a sporting background and just look at body composition coaching as I got lean, so I know how to get you lean. It's not wrong to a degree, but when you've had that background of understanding the impact that a good coach can have on a person's life and the impact that a good coach can have on your perception, your abilities, your what you think you're capable of, that to me sets up a very different dynamic in how you deal with people. And that's just something that I noticed even in America, in just the people that I've interacted with, people that I know, is either you spend a lot of time harnessing or learning the soft skills, or you've actually had a background where you've either been a coach or you've had coaches, you've had a sporting history, a competitive history where you understand the dynamic that a good coach can play in your life. And that's something that I think comes through in our system quite well that I really try to ingrain in it, is that it's so much more now than just sets and reps. Like you said, it's, yeah, you can prescribe macros in a training program, but that's level one. Realistically, like, if all things are equal, we've got a client that is quite competent, has great training acumen, has the understanding, knows how to do data tracking. Sets and reps is bare minimum. Like, that used to be back in the day, whether you're a face-to-face PT or you're a start in the online space, it used to be that was the metric of good. You would set a program that ran for 6 to 8 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. You change it every once in a while. They got their meal plan, or they got their macros and their calorie intake. And let's start working on these things. And that was like, holy hell, this coach is mind blowing. Like, this guy gives a shit.
Yeah. But, and there was a differentiator too. Like, oh my God, you did 10x3 to get someone strong? You're a wizard. Take my money.
GDT, sign me up.
Yeah.
But and I think that was true. That was if you actually had a program in place versus, hey, the client rocked up, we did a session, like, you were already an outlier from the norm. Because the amount of times, like, even I did it. Like, when I started out, there were some people who loved the idea of a program, wanted to come train before I was outside of working with me face to face. They were like, they would love it. But then there was also clients that were just like, hey, I just want this session to hurt, and I want to go through a burner, and put me through a chest day. I'm not going to track anything. Just put me through a chest day or an upper body day or something like that. I might come in 2 more times during the week. Sometimes there are those clients where, especially face to face, they're just paying you for a therapy session and to feel something. That's really what that is. But that, to me, as a trainer, we're talking about coaching. And once you start heading down that route of being a coach, which I think is a way too self-diagnosed term nowadays, I think there's a lot more to owning a coaching definition than just saying I am a coach. Once you start heading down that route, the sets and rep model just becomes, or the sets, reps, macros, the X and Ys, if you will, the X and O's, they just become a bare minimum concept that has to go into the part. Like, it's part and parcel with what you're doing. It's like saying that you're an electrician. Oh, I deal with wires. Yeah, you should deal with wires. That's your job. I wouldn't brag about that per se as, oh, it's included in my custom programming. All your programming should be custom. What do you mean? That's a weird flex now to me in 2024, where I see people put, like, inside my package, you get custom programming. Okay, so you get programming, like, you get coaching. That's what it should be. That's the acceptable bare minimum level. But as I touched on, like, there starts to become so many more metrics and intangibles, tangibles that we have to start considering. And this is where the aspect of coaching becomes so important. You start to look at the quantitative. We have the data, we track our metrics, we have the things we're looking for there. And then we start to look at the qualitative. What is going on that's non-tangible that I can't see, but I want you to tell me about? How is it feeling? What's happening? What is your perception of stress this week? What's your perception of anxiety this week? What's impacting your sleep? We got the sleep number, 7 hours, but it was a terrible quality. Well, what's going on around them? What is leading to the sleep factors that are having this disrupted sleep cycle? Because we know, we'll get into all these things, that you want to go through at least 4 to 5 sleep cycles over a night. You want to make sure you're hitting all different phases of REM and non-REM sleep. But if you're getting 7 hours and you're saying, yeah, I got my number, but the qualitative is off and I'm feeling terrible when I wake up, well, that's now where coaching in the online space has to come in. We've got to be asking the right questions. We've got to be getting from the athlete, the individual, what's happening. And that's where I think that next level has to go. And like you said, I don't think AI will get to that point of such interactive connection. There is that point in time where the human can't be replaced by the robotic model, because you can't program the human experience. You can't program my response to the human experience, because that's two humans meeting. And I think that's a huge factor that people have to comprehend. Systemize as much as you can, but really getting to that next level, being a coach, where, like, you want to work with world-class bodybuilders. You want to get someone to that next level condition, that next level performance on the track or the field or the gym or the platform. It's up here where that starts to matter. And it's in the intangibles where it starts to add up. I use this example all the time. There's a reason why when you look at the NBA, 99% of the NBA all have the same skills. They're all really good. They can dribble, pass, shoot, fake. They can fade. They can screen passes. They can screen defense. They know these things, right? They're in the NBA. They're great. But what makes Jordan or Kobe or LeBron so much better? It's the things they do up here and how they perceive those things, how they come back from setbacks, how they look at the non-negotiables during their week. Was there a loss or was there a win? Well, if it's a loss, what's the learning curve they can take from it? If it's a win, what do they give to the rest of the team so they can stay elevated and hyped up? These things start becoming intangibles. It's hard to track, but as a coach, we have to dig into and figure out. And that, to me, pairs right down to even the average Gen Pop client who just wants to get better and have a better experience of coaching. So I completely agree that I just don't think there will ever be a point in time where the AI model replaces the entire integration of a human. And I'd be very disappointed if I learned that coaches were doing that. I think it has a place, but having that ability to differentiate yourself by the fact that you're real and you understand the soft stuff, not just the hardware X and O's, manipulating macros and metabolism and trying to drive hypertrophy with a certain rep scheme and going through a strength phase. Like that stuff's great. It has to have a purpose. But the next point from that has to be us as coaches getting into the person. You're dealing with a person, you're dealing with a real human being that is going to have their own internal intangible variables that come into play. And with every input, we know there's an output. So we have to be able to understand and digest and break down and figure out those outputs and then how do we mitigate them. And again, that to me starts being coaching.
Yeah, and I think, and one thing I've probably been guilty of doing this too is poorly communicating those intangibles, right? Because you'll have someone who starts, and I can think of a couple of clients, everything's going good, like you have some macros, you do some protein habits, whatever, you got some training, got some everything going, and everything's going good. Like they're on track, month 1, month 2, month 3. It's right around that third month, they're like, why am I paying you all this money? You just tell me to eat more protein, do a few simple things, and you try to explain to them that, well, one, you had to pick all these options out of other things to do, and you don't want to tell them that there's some shit coming, but after you've coached enough people, everybody has some shit coming at some point.
Yeah.
Like life is going to happen to everyone. They're going to get thrown off. Something's going to happen, injury, illness, whatever. And to me, that's where you're paying money for a higher level coach, is how do you get through those obstacles? Because that's where most people just get a really bad case of the fuckets and they're back to where they were before.
Yeah, I completely agree. So one of the ways we look at it is I actually judge a client's progress by how far they fall back. So it is
Yes.
behavior change models. When we look at the trans-theoretical model, the concept and the psychological understanding of behavior change in any level, whether it be elite athlete or it be Gen Pop person trying to improve protein intake, there's always going to be a setback, what we call a relapse. Now, you can judge a client on how they're doing when things are going great. I would argue that's a valuable approach to understanding their life and how they're progressing, because everyone does well when things are good. It's very
It's an artificial view.
Exactly. It's an inflated view of how life is going and how they're acting as an athlete or an individual, because Mike Tyson says everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, and everyone's able to execute that plan until that first hit lands.
Yep.
So are we judging someone on how things are going when it's going great and it's easy? And then one of the things that I find that is a real easy way to tell the difference between a good coach and not so good coach is how do they approach that setback, that fallback, that hiccup, that off the wagon week or day or month? Are we attacking the person or are we addressing? Are we confronting them with insult, with abuse? My clients aren't motivated. They lack discipline. They blah, blah, blah. Well, they're a representation of you. So if they're lacking something, why didn't you teach them? So to me, the best approach, or one of the best ways to look at it, is when that setback happens, how far do we fall? Well, a really easy way to gauge it, right, is we track that tangible data. So one of the things we do is ask questions like, what's a win this week? What's a loss this week, or a setback, or something that you struggle with? And in that, you'll get two very distinct answers. But when you start to work with someone brand new, getting a full week of tracking protein is basically a win, right? Like they'll say, you know what, I tracked my protein, I got 3 serves of vegetables today. That's a win. But I also went and had half a carton of beer and pizza on the weekend and my calories blew out. So it's like the win is good, right? We've gone up, we can see this. It's a very small win. It's like you tracked your protein. For an elite athlete, that's like a bare minimum. For a new person, that's a huge win. The setback, though, was massive. They fell pretty far. Like they've basically increased their surplus rather than being a deficit just by that one weekend activity. Now, 6 months down the track, and I'm working with this person, or I'm working with people, I'll see things like I hit protein, carbohydrates, I was within 5% of my fats. I hit 500 grams of vegetables. I didn't miss a session. My steps were done. I'm looking forward to that now getting to 10% body fat instead of 15. So all of a sudden, those wins are so exponentially higher. And you can see that they've actually progressed in what the skill is. The skill becomes harder, like they're setting higher expectations themselves and they're achieving higher standards of operation. But with that, because they have now these new baselines of behavior, well, the loss, oh, I forgot to track Tuesday. And so, hang on, rather than looking at that as a negative, where clients often will, right? Like, oh, I'm a horrible person. I didn't track my food Tuesday. Remember 6 months ago when your off week was you had 5,000 calories of pizza or beer? Now,
Yeah.
you're challenging yourself because you didn't track a Tuesday. So I use those progressions of wins because that means we're building skills, we're building new habits, the systemization is occurring, which is what leads to great results. As James Clear says, you fall to your systems, you don't rise to the level of your goals. But with that, we're also assessing the fallback. So what is a loss this week? I only got 3 liters of water instead of 4. Well, 6 months ago, you weren't even having water twice a day. So that's a win. I'm taking that as a win. It's just you've got to flip that lens. As we said, in the behavior change model, the trans-theoretical model, relapse is inevitable. But if I can say, let's say you go 5 steps forward and you used to fall back 4, yes, it's still a net positive, but it's a big drop. That's a slow win that's going to take a lot of time. Can I teach you over that time where you move 5, you only drop 1? And then it becomes like, well, now we're at a net positive of 4, and you just keep raising that bar. That's to me like where we start seeing the client's ability to change, the ability to get results, the ability to progress. And this can be for anyone. An elite athlete who doesn't handle their rehab. Okay, well, in the past, when you rehab with people, you might have only done it once a week and you were half-assing. Now, you're with our system, the way we're working, you're smashing rehab 4 days a week, hitting all the targets, you're doing what the physio is telling you to do. We're getting your strength back in, we're recovering faster than you expected. Yes, it's not 100% and we're not back straight away, but like that progress of you as an athlete is now tenfold what it was 6 or 12 months ago with other coaches. So like those intangibles start to become factors we can quantify by having qualitative questions and just having that ability to ask the right questions, to feel the right information. And then it starts to paint you a picture. Where am I winning? Where am I losing? What is that win compared to what it was? And where is that loss compared to what it was? So those are like 2 really simple ways that I'll just attack that what is almost intangible and put it into something that we can measure, or at least assess.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that because it's like the carrot and the stick, right? In different, what I've noticed with people, different personalities, some people are highly motivated by avoiding the negative. Some people, if even say anything remotely negative, they just completely crumble, right? So you're trying to more kind of build them up. And it's not always the same, but yet the process of what's going well, what can we improve is the same, just how you're coaching it and how you're trying to get people to that point could look radically different from one person to the next.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. The average coach will work with a diversity of people. But with those questions, like you said, we set a baseline expectation of systemization, though the answers are going to be stark differences in comparison. One person will be happy they had 2 serves of protein a day and got some water. Their loss might be that, like I said, binge for a whole weekend and come back 5 kilos heavier on Monday. For another person, it might be the win this week was like I set a PB of 5% of my deadlift and I'm 2 weeks out from the platform. That's amazing. Wow, well done. The setback might be that I forgot to do my prehab for 1 day. So like the differences you'll get are huge, but then you're able to coach the individual on where they are. And that's the big thing I think coaches don't understand is they'll set these amazing plans and protocols. This is my system. You should be at it if you work with me. The reality is most people that come to coaching, they're starting at a certain level. Yes, ideal world, we have very highly conscientious, low neurotic people that are very task orientated and driven, higher in openness where they have a degree of it. They have an ability to perceive new ideas, but they're agreeable in the sense they're highly coachable. That would be the perfect athlete or person we work with. That isn't 99% of the coaching industry. It does not exist. It's a unicorn.
Yep.
So we have to understand that the person we're working with is at a level. Our job is to meet them at that level and then raise them to the athlete or person that they want to be and we can see them be. That is what I think the objective job of a coach is. When you start looking at really break it down, I'm meeting you where you are, and I know you have a level. You personally probably don't see the potential that I do, but my job is to extract that out of you and get you to operate at that level. And then once we get to that level, one of the things I find on top of that is you start to see people really open up what the potential could be and they start to realize what happens if I go nail this even more? What if I hone in really tight? What if I just focus on this? Now that potential is even higher. Now that ability is like even further. The ceiling's been raised and what's next? And that's, again, as coaches, that becomes our job. We're trying to extract out of people a belief they might not necessarily have about themselves, though we can see it, and have them work at that level.
Yeah. And once you, let's say you identify a loss, so someone, I fell into 3 Chinese buffets over the weekend, and I'm 7 kgs higher on Monday. Ooh, look, I'm actually using metrics. I'm talking to the Aussie guy. But then what? You have a level of awareness, right? So you obviously they reported it, so you can talk about that. Do you have any system or thought pattern of, okay, once they're aware of it, like where does your brain go in terms of how am I gonna tackle this thing?
I would say it depends on the client. I guess any good coaching answer should be it depends, but
Sure.
the let's say on average, right? As most of the literature says, attacking someone is going to re-ingrain the behavior and probably create emotional distance from them. They're not going to feel confident, trust you in the future. We're trying to build trust with our clients. I'm trying to build a level of openness and communication. They have slipped up. They have told us about this. Thank you for that conversation. Thank you for being able to have that communication with me. I've had clients in the past who don't do that. It makes it hard to coach them. This is now a coachable learning experience. The first thing that I'll do is, thanks to like my background in psychology, is what I'm studying. I've got separate certification, things like acceptance commitment therapy. So I apply these principles where possible with my clients. When a situation's happened, there's nothing but acceptance. You can't change it, so there's no point going back and beat yourself up. I'm not going to attack you for what is. I'm going to use it as a chance to help you and teach you. It happened. There is nothing you can change about the fact. So being emotionally stimulated by the idea or neurotically stimulated by the idea that you had it, and therefore you're a POS and screw you and you're a bad client, that serves no one. It's probably going to drive them away from coaching. A lot of the time, that is what drives people away from coaching. It's
Oh,
a fear.
definitely.
It's a fear of being harassed, attacked, criticized. Because the reality is, most people aren't high conscientious, low neurotic, driven robots. They're going to have these moments in situations. So a degree of acceptance almost becomes essential. Let's just simply accept the fact that it's happened, it was, that's it. Now, where do we go from there? Well, we can start to get into some of the qualitative things. Well, you had that situation, right? How did you feel afterwards? Well, I recognized by the second buffet, I was pretty full. I
Yeah.
probably should have. I probably should have been at that point where I'm like, you know what? I'm just feeling bloated here and eating like an asshole because that's what I. That's just what everyone else was doing. Okay, cool. So, did you feel pressured to do it, or did you choose to do it? Was it like you put yourself in that situation on purpose, or did you feel the group just went there and you were tagging along? Well, the group were hassling me because I wanted to go home and I was done drinking and eating, and they were trying to kick on and keep it going, and I just felt guilty. Okay, so there's a level of guilt and shame that goes with this. The type of people you're associating with aren't really aligned with where you're trying to go. Let's look at how that works. Let's assess your environment. How do we get you to be in a better environment where you're able to control the situation more and still be present with friends and family? Well, not all these friends are people that I necessarily want to be around. It's just some of them are close friends and the rest are assholes, but I want to be there. Okay, so then we start getting into these start becoming coachable situations where I'm like, I'm not telling you to cut your friends, but let's look at the situations you're putting yourself in. Can you take accountability and ownership here? Yes, you are directly responsible for the people that you hang around, for the places that you go to, for the locations that you're in. So how can we shift this? How can we change this? What are you in control of? Well, I probably could have made sure I had my protein and vegetables first during the day. I could have made sure I had water intake. Okay, so then by the time you get to the buffet, you're already pretty full. You've had a day of like high fiber vegetables and fruit and protein, but you've got some calories to play around with. And then I start teaching them, use that as a chance to teach some skills. Well, if you calorie bank or you preamble that it's going to happen, which in your past, you go out with these guys, you get drunk and eat shit food. What if we make sure that you've had good food first, still have some calories in the bank, but you're going to be so full from the good food you've had today that you're not going to feel starved or depleted, you're not going to feel hungry. So then all of a sudden the alcohol comes in and the Chinese buffet, you've got low frontal inhibition, you've got a inhibition to say no to these people because you have a social pressure from the past, and you have a craving for food, high salt, high sodium, carbohydrates and fats, very palatable, very easy to eat. And now you've created an environment that is basically just a spiral for negative behavior and consumption that's conflicting with your goals. Well, if you control some of those things, you've now put a limit on how bad that can be. So I kind of use it as, depending on where the client is, to teach scale to what they know and what might be their level of coaching. I'm not going to say drop all your friends, don't ever drink again, don't go have Chinese buffet. But it's going to be like, hey, next time, because this will probably happen next time, Can we limit it to one buffet? Can we limit it to one plate? Can we limit it to make sure that you're having protein and vegetables across the day first? Because you'll be so full you won't be able to get to the second plate. Yes. All right. And then you just use that to, again, you're scaffolding and teaching the skills and the mental frameworks and abilities so that client now has autonomy to make decisions in the future. What also has happened is that they now feel connected to me. They now feel trusting with me. We have a relationship where I'm actually using that to teach them. And from there, they're going to be able to really build motivation. Like we spoke about at the Coach Catalyst Summit. When we look at self-determination theory, the three pillars: relatedness, competency, and autonomy. I'm empowering that client to make their own choices. They've now displayed those choices work, and they're feeling trusting with me. And we have a relationship where I'm not going to criticize them for messing up. The next week that goes on, they've now got tools to put in play. And realistically, all we're doing as coaches is building that baseline of skills and tools so they have an arsenal to know that, hey, the weekend's coming up. I'm going to do that. Come Monday, things are sweet. And it's the difference between a preset 12-week program, fat loss cut. Like I do 12-week booty challenges. I don't have a time frame I work with people. I build with them until they're at a point where they no longer need me, and then they choose to stay or they move on. And ideally, for my Gen Pop clients that aren't moving to physique competition, they have a baseline of skills and abilities where they come back to me because they want the next goal, not because they have to. And we've taught them enough where it's like, you can have that Sunday event and not feel guilty Monday because you've got all these skills to implement. And you're still accountable, you're still trusting the system, you're still getting a result, but you're also still able to be social with your friend and go out. You're just probably more cautious and aware of the decisions you're making. That is coaching. And it's making lasting impact where they aren't going to come back to me in 10 weeks' time with the same spiral. And you see the 6-week challenges, they smash it for 6 weeks, go all right for a week, drop off the wagon. Now they're back to me 2 weeks later for the exact same thing. I'm teaching you to not need me, and you choose to come back if you want to.
Yeah, there's an article I should write at some point that I haven't yet, but it's basically the title is how to lose weight when all your friends are assholes.
Yes, 100%.
Because it's almost always social issues. It's some people have only been taught, I don't feel good, the biochemical solution, right? It's culture. We work in an office, like, hey, celebrations, always birthday cake or food or whatever. But I like what you said about giving people the skill set and kind of the optionality of what to do in those situations. And it's also a weird thing because on one level, people know it, but yet they don't, right? So looking from an outside, you would be like, oh, these seem like rather simple things you're doing, but yet when you're in that moment, it's crazy that those ideas don't come into your head. Like I've never had a client who's, oh yeah, we're at the bar, I'm at my third beer and I'm face down on a plate of nachos that goes, oh, if I had protein before this wouldn't happen. Like in that time point, it just doesn't. So I think even having just the time period away to review it, to know you have a skill set. And I like what you also said is that you're not just telling people, well, bro, don't do that. Right. Okay, really? That's your advice? Like just avoid everything? That is not a long-term strategy. That's just the ability to white knuckle through shit. And we know that's not going to last long term.
Yeah, avoidance is a horrible strategy. Yeah. Avoidance is one of the key pillars, or experiential avoidance is one of the key pillars that acceptance and commitment therapy works to confront. Is like people that try to avoid life and hide it in ways like even just avoiding ownership and accountability, avoiding the decisions you made, like the ability to do that for people is so easy. And so teaching them to be able to step away from the experience first, to accept that it happened, and then you're empowering that client to use hindsight, which we all know, everyone knows hindsight's the 2020 thing, right? Like it's great. So let's use that hindsight to go, well, let's be honest with yourself. How shitty did you feel after 6 beers and a buffet and a pizza? I felt crap. I was gastroic out of both ends. The next day I didn't feel good. I didn't move. I slept on the couch for 12 hours. Okay, so do you want to do that again next time? Preferably not. And one of the things I actually find with my clients when we work this way is they naturally start to evolve their life with it anyway, because if we expand that view, what actually happens when you start to make these decisions? When you start to assess not only the situation you're drinking and eating shitty food, but shouldn't your friends want to be supportive of your goals? Well, if your friends are supportive of your goals, why are they taking you out drinking and getting you blind drunk and pressing you to eat crap food when you're saying, hey, I actually don't feel comfortable with myself. I want to drop 20 kilos. I'm with a coach. This is what I want to do. To me, that starts to tell you like, well, it tells me my clients' results. They start to assess their friendships. Well, how many of these people actually serve me? And I've just been kind of someone that I linger around with because of high school or my small town syndrome, or I don't know any different. It's the team that I played in, or it's the group that I used to know. Well, majority of my clients, when they start down this process, they start assessing all these factors. Now, I wrote an ebook called How to Build Your Optimal Environment. And it starts looking at all these factors that, like, your environment is every place that you exist in, right? It's every domain that you exist. But it's also the people that you surround yourself with. It's the locations you choose to be. It's the information you put in your environment, the stimulus, the data, the input, the output. All these things start to make up your environment. So if we're heading down that rabbit hole, I don't really need to optimize your length and tension relationship. I don't need to maximize the resistance curve of the machine. I don't need to give you some specific like length and partial hypertrophy. The program will take care of itself. We're going to teach you to train F and hard first. Like, my big approach is learn to fail first before it gets complicated. You don't need gas principle, 4-week deloads every single week. Like most people that start with me in the first 3 to 6 months, I might deload twice, because as they build their train acumen, they learn to fail before failure is necessary, and then before they actually build fatigue. So for me, that takes care of itself. Keep the program simple. We're looking at more of optimizing the life variables that are going to make impact to the response of training, to the response of their food. And that starts to take care of themselves, and they start to evolve their own life alongside of it. Oh, my work stress and situation shit for the life goals that I have. Okay, well, do you have other skills? I'm probably going to look at a different job. Fantastic. What have you been waiting for? Probably this conversation. Okay, go do it. Let's start putting out the tender. Just start putting it out there. The amount of clients that I've worked with that have changed finally to a job they loved, or like just moved to a new job because it wasn't supporting their other goals, their life, and they realize, oh, I want to spend more time with my family and train. Okay, was working 20 hours a week, 20 hours a day helping you with that? No. Okay, well, go deal with that. Now I've got that taken care of. Okay, what's your sleep habit? What's your actual sleep? I call it building your sleep routine.
Mm-hmm.
What does your sleep routine and wind down time look like? Well, I'm usually working up until the point I go to bed, then I don't sleep well, I'm stressed, and I'm probably having a beer or a coffee while I'm trying to work. None of that screams good sleep.
Yeah.
So let's confront that. What's keeping you up at night? Mates want to go out. I'm late from work. I don't have things prepared in the morning, so it backloads in my days. Okay, so time management's an issue. Let's teach that. Like, all these things start to become optimized where the input from training is so simple that it gets a result because the other factors are taken care of. And now the client's just naturally evolving their own life and feeling better. And we all know when someone feels better, they feel happier, they're more engaged, they're more motivated, they're going to push harder in the gym, they have more mental capacity. So that's where, to me, it starts to become this unique journey. And every client will start differently with where they are, with what friends they have, what people they know, what level of coaching they're at. But it naturally progresses. And I can't get on the point, especially for my body composition clients, not physique prep athletes, but just body composition clients. They'll want to keep improving things and optimizing things where it might be they want to look at TRT or HRT. They want to look at, how do I maximize that? How do I maximize now we move to maximizing training potential. And then it gets to a point where they're in such a good spot, I give them the option. Hey, we've nailed everything here. You're in a great position. You have a great frame. Everything's looking good. The next intensity here for you is either a photo shoot, or like we push you down to really lean and we start looking at, do you ever want to get on stage again? Do you want to compete? And usually be them approaching me. Like the amount of times where I've actually talked my clients off competing, like we spoke about in America, I've talked so many of my clients off competing that usually the ones that do well are the ones that come to me never wanting to compete and say, hey, actually, I want to try this now. We've mastered everything else. I'm actually really keen to see what I can do. And that's where it's like there's a jump off point where it's the body composition goal is just extreme enough where it's healthy, it's still good, it's still, you can still have a little bit of a social life and experience normal things, but not, you don't have a lot of room for error. And that's a pivot point where like my clients will stay here, and they've built that life, or we'll move to that next goal, which is I want to be 7% photo shoot, I want to be comfortable taking my shirt off with ab veins, or I want to get on stage. That next goal becomes a bit more extreme. We start to really tighten stuff up, and now I can coach you to be an athlete. But the reason why we can do that is we've built all those fundamental behaviors. Your life has evolved to the point where you know what you want. You are stating what you want to achieve, what you want to work toward. Your goals are clear. And I think that's a huge natural progress for my clients that they generally tend to follow, because we're less worried about the X and O's of programming, and it's more about how do I evolve you as a person to get the most out of your time with me, and just get the most out of your time in life. Because realistically, like physique, and I say this all the time, physique development should be reflective of the life you're trying to build in you as a person. You shouldn't be ruining your life to physique development. You shouldn't be ruining your life to get to 3% body fat. But realistically, if it's done properly, life development should pair alongside the endeavor of physique development and enhancement. And when it's done properly, it can be completely life-changing.
Yeah, that's one concept I wish I would have realized sooner. So similar to you, like one of the things I look for now is probably many years ago, I would have said, okay, this client's going to stay longer. They're going to have another goal, that type of thing. But the goal was always within whatever they were doing. Oh, they deadlifted 315. Now they want to deadlift 350 or, whatever. And now I look at, can we get them to the point where they're looking at, like you mentioned, expansion?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like I've had a couple of clients who want to compete in grip sport, want to compete in powerlifting, want to do something different, or even recreation. A couple of clients took up wake surfing, wakeboarding. One of them took up kiteboarding. Wasn't necessarily anything I said, you definitely need to go do this. It was, they're like, oh, I always wanted to do this thing. I was never in shape. The thought of them ever being able to do that, they were not in a good enough physical or mental space to realize they could actually do it. And then once they get to that mental and physical space, they realize, oh, wow, I can go play golf. I can go whatever. So to me, that was super cool. And one of the things I look for now, even if they leave my coaching and go off and do on their own, like to me, that's like a huge win, because I feel like I know I've definitely improved their life by giving them more options to do things.
I think that is one of the motivating factors as a coach. So I put out a lot of free lectures and stuff where I just dumped information on my perception of things. And one of the things I put out, I ran a workshop on, was understanding purpose in business, coaching lens. There's a lot of people just get into coaching with this idea of, I'm going to be the Bali coach or the Tijuana coach who sips pina coladas on the waterfront, and I'm going to make
well,
all this
bro,
money.
It's only 5 minutes a day you have to work, right? If you're an online coach, what do? You put the program in, you yell at them about macros, bro, that's it, right?
We're done. That's it. That's 6 days of the week to chill out.
Yeah.
And the funny part is, most of the people that, I genuinely believe this to be true, when you chase the money, the business collapses. When you chase fulfillment, the money comes to play.
Yes.
So when you look at that purpose, that fulfillment, like what you've just described, that gives me fulfillment in what I'm doing. When I see someone like come to me, they're like, hey, I actually nailed this. I didn't know that I had the ability to do this. What can I do next? And you're like, yeah, that's a fair question. When we started, you were 30% body fat. Like my guy get on stage this weekend, so the 14th, by the time this comes out, he started around the 30, 35% body fat mark. He started at a level of just, he wasn't happy with himself. He started with me with the, hey, I've done other coaches before, but I really just want to see how I can tighten up and push my physique and look as good as possible. Then it got to the point where his partner started with me. She wanted to compete as well. She's a wellness athlete. And then I was like, well, if she's doing it, our environment is optimal for this. Our environment is literally curated for this lifestyle. All I'm doing is really going from fourth gear to fifth. I want to push myself and see what I'm capable of, see if I can get there. And now he's a day out and it's finally starting to hit him that he's actually gone from 30+% body fat to what is 5 to 4. And it's, you did that yourself. Like you were able to see that you had that ability or that interest, because you got to that point first where you're like, I never thought this was possible. What's next? And that to me is like one of the most fulfilling things as a coach, where it's beyond just you hit a PB in the gym. It's more so like, how has your life grown and developed in your time with me? And it should end up in a better position from where we started. And to touch back on your point there about like goal setting. So one of the things we do, because that exact concept was something that I truly believe that if I can get you thick skin shredded and you have veins coming out everywhere, and it is like, there is just not an ounce of fat left on your body, but you're broke, your relationship's over, you lost your job, and your health is collapsed. I have failed as a coach. That's not coaching. That's just, I know how to get you shredded at the cost of everything else.
Looks good on Instagram though, bro.
Yeah, it looks great on Instagram. It looks fantastic. I'm the coach who gets you peeled and ruins your life. Sign me up. So to us, one of the big things is I want to have people at least set a destination 5 years into the future. What does your best 5 years look like from your comprehension right now? Where do you want to be? What is something that you think is almost impossible in the next 12 months, but it's something that you really want? So what we tend to find is once people actually narrow down and focus on an objective, it tends to improve it shortens the time horizon it takes to achieve it, because now they're focused. Realistically, they were participating in it, but not really giving it everything. Once it's on paper, it's narrowed down. It's, oh, that 5-year goal was 2 years. So we're constantly able to reassess. But alongside that, we have them do it for their physique or training goals or performance goals. So meaning whether they're an athlete a bodybuilder, a powerlifter, fighter pilots, the variety of people we work with. That training performance goal, whatever that is, that's the 5-year goal. But then we also have you do it for your life, so your personal life, and we have you do it for your career or business. I work with a lot of coaches. I work with a lot of people that are athletes themselves, and so they have their own goals. But alongside that, I want to know what you're doing in those 3 areas. Because like I said, if I get you to performance goal X, but your life and your personal life and relationships and business came at the expense, that's not a fair trade-off. That's not, I'm all in, I'm ready to kill for it, bro. That's you've ruined your life for a plastic trophy and the fact that no one cares about a niche sport. Like, realistically, no one gives a shit. And you're trying to act tough because you ruined everything and threw all your relationships and friendships. That's a failure on my behalf as a coach. So to have this idea of, even if we're working on the physique goal and things are going perfectly, how can I help you achieve these other areas of your life? Because what will actually happen is, if they're raising it up, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So if we're improving your physique in the right way, the chances are that for that physique to really get to that level, your life has to be in a good place, your career has to be in a good place, financially, physically, emotionally. So it's in my best interest to make sure that we're working towards those things collectively in the right direction. So to have those goals on paper, you're now looking at this going, what are these 3 things I want to nail? And then now we're just moving your life towards those objective markers. How do you not get better as a person and an athlete if everything is improving?
Yeah, and they all feed back into each other, right? And I've made this mistake before of taking on clients who, maybe financially they had enough to pay me, but it was not amazing. Their stress was off the chart. And they're like, yeah, I want to do a physique competition in 24 weeks. And early on in my career, idiot me goes, sure, I can help you. And I'm like, oh, it never ended well. When you look back at it and you're like, oh, that's on me. Like, I should have realized that. And so now, ironically, like you were saying, it's a conversation of trying to talk them out of it or change their goal. It's okay, here's the deal. Here's, in hindsight's always 2020. Let's try to get you back to maintenance. Let's try to resolve some of your stress. Let's try to get you back in a good position. Then we'll have another conversation about what you want to do. If you want to do that, cool, I can help you. If you are hell-bent on just finding a coach to burn your ass to the ground for 24 weeks, then that's not me. Yeah, but that takes time to have I think the maturity and even the experience to realize that, oh, okay, yeah, and the only way I know that is because, I did it before and screwed people up and screwed myself up in the process.
But to go back to our original point, like, that's a sign of good coaching, right? That should be a sign of good coaching. We have that we have the information, the data from hindsight, we should be implementing. One of the biggest things that I think like coaches should really take away from the conversation also is speed of implementation is directly proportional to success. If you're able to implement these things that you've learned quickly, that means, like, I've had clients where I noticed some data trends in my female athletes that I wasn't paying attention to some other athletes. And I was like, oh, before I start prep with this girl, because I found it in prep with her, I'm going to implement that right now with her and client X and client Y. And that changed. They were like, why are we doing this? Am I doing something wrong? I was like, no, I was doing something wrong. I should have been looking for this before we start. And so now I want to know what that looks like before we get into prep. And so that speed of implementation makes a huge difference in your coaching acumen and your coaching experience, but also your success as a coach. So you're going to get that information now and go, I was actually stuffing up here. I'm competent and able enough as a person to admit where I was wrong, made a mistake, or could have been better. I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm going to take ownership of that, and I'm going to put that in my process. Like you've just described there, I know we spoke about this in America, is I'm building out a psychological screening tool for comp prep athletes because I don't believe most people should be on stage. It's contrary to hearing that, as most people think. I'm a prep coach, I'm a physique coach. That's a large part of what I do. I actually believe we should be screening more clients to not be on stage because they're just not ready. And it's become such a pop trend, an Instagram trend, a social trend to get the glitz and glamour and be up there. That's fine. But a large part of the process people forget is it is still a competitive sport. Yes, it's a pageantry. Yes, it's like you're just up there to look good, blah, blah. But there is still a competitive edge to the event. And a lot of people aren't athletically driven. So to me, we need to be screening like any other athlete. Are you mentally prepared? Is your life prepared for this endeavor you're about to engage in? If not, we're having that tough conversation. My girl who just got a pro card in season 8 here in Australia, natural athlete, phenomenal placing. In her first season, got a pro card, and straight after that won the pro show. She was national champion. So fantastic. I was mind blown that it happened. 6 months prior to that, she was actually supposed to compete, but I said no. We stopped and pivoted her season because mentally she wasn't in a position where we believe was in the best interest and health to get on stage. And I had to have the balls as a coach to say, hey, you can choose to go with someone else. Someone else will get you on stage right now. I'm willing to lose money because you'll leave me, but I'm willing to lose that money for your health first to say, we're not ready. Let's do this later. A lot of emotional resentment up front, like a confrontation, because that is a hard conversation to hear and have as an athlete and a coach. But because of that ability to have that conversation, she then won a pro card and won a pro show straight away. Like, these are the conversations we have to be prepared to have and learn from and be aware of, that makes a big difference in the sport, in any client's life. It's not always going to be easy confrontational conversation. It's not always going to be like we're best buds hanging out. Our job as a coach is to get the best out of our client in the best interest of the client. She was not ready to give her best, and I had to be aware to give that conversation. From that, rather than having those awkward conversations all the time towards prep starting, I was like, we can build a screening tool here to assess these people and make sure that they actually have the fundamental traits and skills and abilities that a good bodybuilding season has. And then that way, when someone comes to you, they're starting like, hey, I want to be a bodybuilder. All right, here's this test first. Let's screen for this. Are you ready to start prep this year? Or is this something we're working on for 12 months? Oh, yeah, we're probably going to have to take some time. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. This is going to take time. If we prep right now, you'll throw your life away. Do you want to do that? No, I want to actually do pretty well. All right, let's build these things first. There's a few areas here specifically I want you to work on. We're going to work on them together. We'll reassess in 6 months, make sure it's in a good position, and then we assess your physique and blah, blah, blah. So again, we're taking that, to go back to the initial conversation, we're taking those qualitatives, pairing it with the quantitatives, and making it tangible information where we can go, as a coach, am I best serving you in your best interest, or am I just trying to take your money? Because there is a huge difference between just signing someone up and taking the cash and actually impacting their life, where you're making them better people. Because we have the power as coaches to make someone better or worse.
Yeah. And my running joke with some people is, okay, it doesn't take any skill to take someone on, say, as a physique athlete and just throw tons of volume and stupid drop sets at them for no apparent reason and put them on poverty macros. Like, that doesn't take any skill. And then when you object to that, they just argue, calories in, calories out, bro. It's okay. Like, on one level, does it work? Yes, but man, like, what is the cost associated with it? And at least from what I've seen in the US, I think we're actually evolving past that, and I don't see as many just flat out abysmal prep coaches like I did 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the interesting parts about America, because you guys are so big, if we plot it on a normal distribution, the level of better coaching is increasing. But with that, as we know, positive and negative standard deviations, you also have, I think, the better coaching is increasing, and the amount of better coaches out there is increasing. But then at the same time, that extremity of bad coaching is still there. But I think because we exist in such good spaces, you probably don't see it as often. But when you hear some of the horror stories of the things going on, like you said, people still just bottoming out calories, jacking up training volume, 100, 140, 200 sets a week of just absolute drivel. And it's like, yeah, you got a result. The consequence of this was far outweighing the reward. And it's like, now it almost comes to not a lot of the time, but some of the time I work as a coach is really, when I get someone new, it's probably undoing some of the stuff they've learned or had been exposed to or known from previous coaching. Now, I've had girls start with me where previous prep coaches hadn't even tracked their menstrual cycle. And they're already showing predisposition to body image issues, scale tracking issues, and the coach hadn't identified that to just track their menstrual cycle to help them understand it. It got to a point where we streamlined their data so often that they were basically hitting the same every fourth week was basically 1 to 1.5 kilos in fluid weight that would come up. And then by the next week, we're going into their follicular phase, boom, done, everything's good.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, cool. But if we didn't have that data and that awareness and I wasn't coaching you properly, tracking, asking those questions, you'd be going through the same body image issues every fourth week, like, oh, I'm bloated mess, I hate myself, I'm fat, can we drop calories? And then it's like, but it's a lot easier to have that conversation when I'm now teaching you to track it and understand why we're tracking it and what's happening. And we use that data, now we start to get some trends and information. Super easy to bring your awareness to. But again, there's still that level of coaching that exists where I'm just going to bottom out your food and increase your volume. and then call that coaching. Like, yeah, you got lean, but that's just a natural byproduct of biochemistry and physiology. That's not coaching. That was just inevitably bound to occur from simply increasing output, decreasing input.
Yeah. And also knowing when to not, I don't want to say give in, but not to always agree with the client, right? So that example, right? It's, oh,
Oh
I'm
yeah,
up 1.4 kgs this week. It's easier and less confrontational for the coach to be like, oh, let's just drop your calories versus one, let's try to figure out what's going on. Two, it's only been that way for 3 days now. I'm going to wait for another week or 2 weeks or whatever your time period is, which is a whole different discussion, and see, is this actually a trend or
yeah,
not? Right. And I
yeah,
think I know for myself, early on, I was more afraid of losing clients by not
yeah,
making changes as often. I was guilty of taking programs that worked really well and the person was on it for 8 weeks and then totally redo their program because I was afraid that if they didn't see many changes, they were going to leave. And now I'm just
yeah,
like, hey, man, like we're going to ride this horse until it doesn't work anymore. And we're going to make
yeah,
changes and tweaks and we're going to be doing things along the way. But man, if it's working and you're doing it and you're cool with it, why would I change it? You know what I mean?
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that I pump my clients with the adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If there is nothing showing wrong, why would we make adjustments? If it's, I use myself as an example for clients when they get that way. I would argue I'm probably advancing towards a intermediate to advanced athlete age. Like I've got enough experience in acumen where I'm like, it's getting more awareness, my body's more aware, I'm more in tune with it, I know what's going to happen, yada yada. The train acumen's there. I ran a post comp block, like my first growth phase out of comp, for 32 weeks. The only variable that changed was some increase in set totals and I think some exercise order once I noticed some niggles that were like, hey, when this is
Hmm.
starting, it's sore, but when it's not, it's a little bit better. The overall template of the program, everything else remained exactly the same for 32 weeks. If I'm getting to the point of being an advanced athlete and I can run that for 32 weeks, chances are you can probably run your program, your dieting phase, your nutrition, your lifestyle factors for a bit more than 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But I think it's, yeah, like I said, it's super easy at the start. I think we've all probably been guilty of it. I need to feel like I'm giving you value, but the value is you're inside a system that gets you a result. And you've already seen outside of our system that you weren't getting the results. So realistically, you're paying for the fact that you're going to get that result. And that's what our system is all about is I am not married to a process. I'm married to that I want to get your results as a client. If that process requires change because something's not working, we just assess the inputs and the variables and see what's producing the outputs. And if it's not working, well, then we mitigate, we modify. Unfortunately, I think, like you said, there's some coaches out there that will just get scared of losing the client or they're not even scared of losing clients. I've seen coaches here in Australia, they'll change the entire program every 4 weeks. And I've had that debate so often where to me, if we look at clients and we look at like their actual training ability, their training knowledge, training experience, week 4, they've probably started to master the layout of the program. And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? Instead of deloading or just letting it ride, change. And now they're like, oh, where's this new exercise? Where's this new machine? Where's this? That's week 1. Now it's let's drive some intensity. That's week 2. Oh, now I've got this pretty well laid out. That's week 3. Oh, week 4, we're changing again. And it's like, what for? What are we doing? Where it's yes, there is being a coach and having the X and O's, but you're so tied up into thinking that X and O's are the things that's the input driving the output. Let's go back to that earlier conversation. How about we assess those intangible things? We start to assess the qualitative factors and put some quantitative numbers to it and really start to see how we can improve those things. You know, can we get the client sleeping better? Get some more sunlight, do steps outside. Can they get more sleep in total? Can they get better quality sleep? What's their entire sleep hygiene look like? What is their new, like, one of the best pieces of advice people get is the best morning routine is the night before because
Hmm.
that's going to dictate how well you start your day. But we get so caught up in the fancy 3 hour morning Joe Rogan routine that you have to have with Andrew Huberman set up, and it's got to be like a 4 hour sauna and hot plunge, cold plunge, and blah blah blah. Can we just get you sleeping better the night before? Less alcohol, less caffeine, less stimulants, less visual stimulus. Let's take in less information before we go to bed. Journal a little bit. Make sure you're set up with a nice environment. Aircon's on, mattress is comfortable, blankets, sheets, pillows, etc. Okay, now we've got that in check. What's the next thing we can assess? All the while, this whole training program is still running at the same pace. We're still doing the same program, modifying maybe 1 or 2 sets a week and maybe a varied exercise because it just was maxed out or something like that. But that is where we grow the client. The program is barely responsible for making that change. it is responsible, obviously. We all know that, it's essential to growing tissue. But to maximize the output of that program, there is a lot of input that comes from those external factors outside the gym that we have to control or improve, but then get the most out of that programming phase. So a lot of coaching, realistically, if we probably objectively measured it, is less about how we modify the program until we have a very elite athlete, and more about how we manage those lifestyle factors and those intangibles that contribute to how good that program is going to run. If we sleep like shit, we eat like shit, and we aren't feeling properly, the training is going to be crap. So me modifying the program because you feel crap in the gym has less to do with the program and more to do with what's going on outside of it. When you're getting 5 hours of sleep, you're not drinking water, your protein's at half a gram per kilogram, and your carbohydrate level is, I have fats instead of carbs because I feel better. Like, no wonder you train like shit. So me making variable changes on your program makes no sense when the program isn't the reason you feel bad. It's everything else around it. And I think that just comes back to where training coaching experience becomes such a great thing. You have to go through the trenches, and obviously, in order to get on the other side of hell, you first have to go through it. We'll understand that the faster you, which is again where I think having mentors is so important. 41 different chats here wrapped into one, but the idea of having mentors is so important because we can short distance that gap from A to B as a new coach and try and learn these things faster, as opposed to how we had to do it, where it was like basically going through hell and getting things wrong and making all the changes and figuring it out as we recognize that we sucked. We can turn to people now in online spaces where you get a bit more mentorship and guidance and help. But yeah, I think that's a huge factor for coaches to understand is those metrics play such an important role that we need to be like changing a program every 4 weeks when the client hasn't got any of those things as a baseline is almost redundant.
Yeah, and that's a great point. It took me a while to get to this point, but I am now, you can ask any of my clients, neurotic about output. What was your output in the gym? What was your output for your cardio? Not, again, that doesn't mean that everything is max effort or anything like that, but if you were in zone two, were you really in zone two? Like, how long did you do? What was your average heart rate? Because to me, that is the stimulus that's driving the change. But like you mentioned, that's informing me on everything else in that process. And then if I also have an HRV measurement, so now I've got a marker of cost. What cost did you pay to achieve that performance? And if the cost is going up and the performance is there, great, that's cool, but we can only ride that wave so long unless that cost is coming down. So I may preemptively pull things down, or the reverse. Like the cost looks like your HRV is showing you're stressed, but your output is dog shit. Now I know for sure your training is off because your nutrition is off, or your stress, or your sleep. So yes, we may change your training because we don't want to dig a bigger hole that we can't recover from. But then you have to back up and go, okay, is this nutrition related? What is the thing that's driving that? And so even for my own training, like if I can hit most of my volume, then I know, one, I'm probably not traveling. Two, my nutrition's probably good. Stress is reasonable and sleep is probably better. And I can tell all of that just by looking, not even at HRV, but just looking at my output for training over that week. Oh, I was able to do a couple more sets here. Oh, I was able to add a little bit more weight. It's all relatively minor things, but like the amount of planned things that I didn't skip or just run out of time or energy or performance to do. Yeah, and that's like early on, I was just way too wrapped up into they're completely different things. And so one of the things I try to teach in the Phys Flex Cert and the Flex Diet Cert is a concept I call just match macros. If you're going to go to a training session, you're going to burn a shit ton of glycogen. Shocker, maybe you should have some more carbohydrates in your diet to support these things. But even concepts like that, I'm like, man, I wish someone would have told me that 15 years ago. It's just the simple things that drive what's trying to create the output and the change.
I think the important part here is coaches. This is where like I call the 5 minutes of work as an online coach is utter bullshit. It's almost more work as an online coach if you give a shit.
Oh
because
yeah.
because we aren't there in person to see everything play out. We're getting secondhand feedback, and as we know, there is a multitude of psychological data on reflection and recollection for people they suck at. They're
horrible. How many veggies do you eat? Oh, it was amazing. Now you sucked.
And this is where a good lawyer can actually dismiss some witness testimonies.
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
recollection in court is horrible. Under pressure, under fear, under prejudice, the ability to recall information is proven to be horrible.
Yes.
They'll run these tests where they show basically, hey, there was a speed sign here, what was the number on it? Oh, it was 55, it was 50, it was 45, it was 60. The fact is a speed sign in that environment wasn't there. They added it to the photo to test you. But that test is failed by a lot of people, marginally above average almost, I believe. And so we can see even in a legal setting, recollection and reflection is horrible. So the ability as an online coach to ask the right questions and get the right responses is paramount to your client's success and your ability to deliver good coaching. And this is where, to me, it's understand each person probably has different needs of information, but having a baseline of data that you're looking for. And essentially what happens is I say it's for us as probably more neurotic number nerds, it becomes the matrix. When you look at someone if you're someone who isn't one of the digital readers in the matrix, you just see numbers and the green screen and the numbers are coming down. To those guys that are dialed in, they're seeing pictures. There's a story. There's a movie playing basically as they watch that screen. The information is telling them what's going on. For us as coaches, it's very similar. It's almost the same way. We're seeing your life play out week to week by the data that you give us, and we can start to see those implications. So, as you said, if your output is dropped, if I've got clients that are getting injured too frequently, or I've got clients and their training volume isn't high, if I've got clients that are feeling sorer than usual, if I've got clients that are approaching deload faster than they should be, either the metrics we're looking for are off, meaning like stress is too high, sleep is too low, nutrition's off, relationship issues are probably flaring up, or the training volume is too high. We're simply at that point of MRV where I need to bring that volume back down, or we actually do schedule that deload. But if it's so soon that it's like, hey, 3 weeks into a program, you shouldn't be feeling this sore, let's assess what's happening here, have a phone call, catch up, or just give me more information because something's askew. It should be more closer to the 6 to 8 week mark where we see this level of response and recoverability. So the simple act of that information being on my screen, I can start to figure out like your life. There is some holes here in the story. There's some holes here in the picture that are missing pieces we need to figure out because the output isn't matching the input and we need it to. So these questions and the data, at least it gives us the ability to look at the overall picture more effectively and from that make informed decisions. And as any good coach will know, it is a best guesstimation at most for us. We're using data and information to make the best educated decision possible. It's not perfect, it's not a nailed science. It makes sense, but everyone is so individually different. But with the more information that you give us and the correct information you give us, it makes making those decisions easier and more accurate, more effective, more efficient. And usually with that, we can get some better outcomes. So the online space, I think the idea you could even remotely be a good online coach with a 5-minute lifestyle, like I can sip pina coladas and coffees, give a shit about your clients. There is not a chance in hell that you are going to get away with taking shirtless selfies and talking about your Lambo and doing less actual client work, because the good coach is really looking at that information like, how do I improve my client? This is going to take some work. This is beyond just me adding a new program or a preset template. Yeah, you can add that program, but to maximize the return of that program, what can I do? What can my clients do differently? So you make a meal. Yeah, you can have chicken and potato, but yeah, you're going to get chicken and potato, but can I make that chicken and potato better? I can add some seasoning, I can add some condiments, I can add some different vegetables, I can grill it or I can butter it, I can batter it, whatever. There's so many different ways to get a better outcome than just simply here's the basics, here's your program. I'm going to go have a coffee on the beach and take photos for Instagram. That to me, as I said, it's a load of shit. I just don't see it being possible that any good coach can do that effectively and genuinely deliver a service that's going to make clients, it's going to impact clients in a positive manner and have a genuine outcome. You'll churn and burn a lot, I'm sure, but you might have a huge, I see people brag about, I've served 5,000 clients. And like, if we do that math over 2 years, you serve 5,000 clients, you've got a pretty horrible retention model. And anyone that knows anything knows that retention is the best way of making money. If you're really trying to succeed as a coach, you would keep the clients you have and get a few more as opposed to trying to find new clients. So to me, it's a load of crap that you can have that lifestyle as a coach if you give a shit, because I work borderline 7 days a week and go to uni, and it's not a small feat.
Yeah, and a lot of the work you do isn't necessarily even in client interactions. It's looking at their data. I use True Coach, and we've got Coach Catalyst for some other programs for like the Flex Diet Cert. And I'll spy on clients during the week. I may not even comment for 4 or 5 days because I don't want to influence them too early, but I'll have little
Mhm.
predictions of where they're going and just plugging my computer in here, what they're doing, or even assessments when you start. I have sometimes for advanced athletes a pretty long assessment that may take them like a whole week to actually finish. But looking at it to me is in a weird geeky way, that's fun because that's like
Yeah.
the ultimate problem solving of, okay, I got this data. So their 20-minute row was this. So that's telling me their aerobic capacity, but their 500-meter was only this. Their 3-minute lactate was this. And then we've got their HRV each morning was that. And their move at their Excel test was like 30 seconds, but the Aura says their respiratory rate is like 17 and their 2K tells me their VO2 max and all this data like comes down to something that's at the end rather simple. Hey, go to the gym, do this. I want you to do this type of breath work, and then let's have you eat more protein, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
that's like what coaching is supposed to be. Like you're taking all
Yeah.
the complex things, you're trying to understand the physiology, the background, what affects this, how this affects that. But the little phrase I like is physiology is complicated, but your actions are relatively simple. So the coach is
Mhm.
going to boil all that stuff down to, okay, here's your training thing. And once you're done training, I want you to do a long exhale to downregulate for 5 minutes before you go to bed. Do this type of breath work, do this. It's the things to do are then rather simple, which is why they hired a coach to begin with.
Exactly. And I think that's such an important factor. Piece of information is our job is to convey simplicity to the client and mitigate the amount of variables. Like how many clients do you get where they're so used to having 1,000 different things thrown at their face and it's just like all this information coming at them.
Yeah.
Watch this documentary and this YouTube guy said this, and these influencers on Instagram said this. And part of our job is to almost protect them from that bullshit and kind of minimize the intake that they're getting. Hey, you come to me. These are the things like don't even worry about these things. That's not even a contributing factor right now. These factors are where we're going to focus because XYZ reasons. Yes, I can teach like there's a big push in Australia, not a big push in Australia, but people argue that you need to know the Krebs cycle to understand how to coach people effectively, blah, blah, blah. And like, sure, understanding how pyruvate works and where acetyl-CoA works and how those things can interact and beta oxidation is important. But the majority of the fact is, how do I know that stuff and give my client a result? They
Yeah.
don't need to know that stuff. They don't need to know
No.
what like the background of that information is or how I dechain triglycerides and have them break up into free fatty acids. They don't need to know. They need to know calorie deficit, energy in, energy out, but also makes up the quality of their food. How do I get them to that point anyway? Tracking, blah, blah. The things that actually impact them that are a need to know basis, I'm trying to shield them from the excessive information because paralysis by analysis is a very common thing. And having excessive information thrown at you to try and figure out part of the reason why people come to us as coaches because they've been so overwhelmed with bullshit that hasn't worked. Like I tried keto for 3 months and I did low carb for 6 months and I did this weird 6 week challenge that I ended up at a party. We all binged and did cocaine and ate a shit ton of food and blew a bunch of rails. And all of a sudden I'm back to eating crappy food again. The fact is they've tried everything, or most of them have probably tried most of these things, Jenny Craig, point scoring, whatever. And they're so overwhelmed with what's not working, the information they're being told, this TikTok trend's going on, and this guy said this. And our job becomes to simplify the shit out of the information. Like, how do I get the right data from you? But instead of freaking you out, being like, oh, you're not going to sit there and be like, your 2 kilometer said this, and your 500-meter row
Yeah.
said this, your HRV is here, oh, but your blood pressure shoots up here during the night, oh, this happened. You're not giving them that response. You're sitting there going, here is all of these inputs. I need to give you one output, and that is one variable we're going to change. Any good scientific researcher knows, any good researcher understands, is we're trying to narrow down what the independent and the dependent variable are with one factor, right? Like we're trying to look at what is one independent variable that's going to impact the dependent variable and is going to lead to a change so we can have an understanding of correlation and causation. Now, I'm not going to say that this is directly going to be the solving of all your problems, but let's start with this one thing and see how many factors or metrics get impacted. Oh, this actually had a significant response on 4 or 5 of these metrics. Cool, we're on the right track. Now, what happens if we add another input and we start to just build on that? Like we're using single variables to make a change, see what happens, assess that, and make a different one. But that's our job as a coach is to simplify the shit out of all that extensive, comprehensive, overwhelming information. Go, let's just try this. You've given me your data, you've given me your feedback, you've done your onboarding, done your checking, done your assessments. Here, let's try this single thing. And, oh, that's had a huge change. Oh, that did nothing. Cool. We at least know now that that did nothing, so that's not the fact. But either way, right, we're getting that simplicity to have them understand, reduce the stress, the anxiety, all the freaking out of social media, the over availability of information. Cool, we're done. We can, so let's try this one thing, see what happens. Didn't work? Cool, let's try the next one. Try the next one. That whole coaching process really is trial and error and figuring out a client. And then we're done. Well, we're not done, but it's trial and error to figure them out until eventually we get to a point where we understand that client so well that things are just simple.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much for all the amazing information. And where can people find out more? I know you've got coaching, you've got different programs, you obviously work with clients. Like, where's the best resources they can learn more about you?
Best resources from us, probably go to my link tree on Instagram on either the Matter Athletica account or Ben_Mayfield-Smith _. You can find our website, which is matterathletica.com. There's a whole list of free lectures and education on the Matter Institute, which is just basically every time I do a presentation or a summit, I re-record the thing and present it for free. You can find our YouTube channel and our podcasts, which is Matter Athletica or the Matter Mentality podcast. So as we try to do a lot of information and giveaways and just putting things out. So you can find a whole bunch of stuff before you even pay me a dollar, which is what we like. I would prefer you have watched most of the things or done most of the things before you try to pay me money. And then we have mentoring spaces, coaching spaces, different obviously systems for prep athletes and non-prep athletes. So it's all on the website when you're ready. Otherwise, just literally take all the free information. I hate that I tell people to take it. Oh, what's the catch? And there's just
Yeah.
go take the free stuff, use the free stuff, come back to me if you have a question. So that's where you find it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing this. This was awesome. And yeah, hope to see you again in person. Maybe we'll venture on a very long flight over to your island at some point again, and maybe you'll be back over here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. Huge thanks to Ben for coming on the podcast and sharing all of his wonderful knowledge. Always wonderful to chat with him now that he is back home after a very long flight. Make sure to check out his site. He's got tons of great information, especially on the YouTube channel. Just a massive amount of information there. He also has some stuff on Instagram. We'll put a link to his website there. Really great information there. Make sure to give him a follow, subscribe to all of his stuff on YouTube. So huge thanks to him for coming on the podcast. If you want the answer to the Flex 4 question that I asked him, is if you were a new coach, all the things you've learned over the years through schooling and experience, if you're like, man, I wish someone would have sat me down and told me these 4 things, what would they be? So you can get Ben's exclusive answer to that. Go over to MikeTNelson.com/flex4, F-L-E-X, the number 4. That'll also subscribe you to the daily Fitness Insider newsletter, which is completely free. So you get both of those there. And if you're already on the newsletter, then you will get the Flex for this one delivered directly to your inbox. So huge thanks to Ben. Huge thanks to Tecton if you're looking for an exogenous ketone that can put you in a state of ketosis with usually in about 10 to 20 minutes without having to do a ketogenic diet. Check them out. Lately, like I said, I've been using them a lot. Kiteboarding, which has been great. And also sometimes if I have to do more cognitive work later at night where I want something that will help, but I don't really want to have more caffeine or more stimulants because that's really going to mess up your sleep. So check them out there. Use the code Dr. Mike. I am a scientific advisor to them and an ambassador. So full disclosure on that. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Really appreciate it. If you could give us and subscribe and write a review, all that great stuff that helps us with the old algorithm. It goes a long way to helping better distribution of the show. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'll talk to all of you next week.
Well, they say all good things come to an end.
What's that got to do with this show?
This podcast is for informational purposes only. The podcast is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. You should not use the information on the podcast for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease or prescribing any medication or other treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider before taking any medication or nutritional supplement, and with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this or any other podcast. Reliance on the podcast is solely at your own risk. Information provided on the podcast does not create a doctor-patient relationship between you and any of the health professionals affiliated with our podcast. Information and statements regarding dietary supplements are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to therein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.